Hi guys, it is Weedle and I'm back with a tank review. And today I'm going to be looking at the recently buffed Pz.Kpfw and just let you know if I think the recent buffs made it actually good or not. And the short of that is yes, I think this is a very strong tank right now. Well, at least strong. It feels strong. It does have its weaknesses, and if you're asking if it's going to be meta, I'm going to go with no. But I still think it's going to be very good in pub plays. I don't think I'll see it a whole lot in competitive. But the main reason for that is two: awkward platform. It's a rear-mounted turreted tank, which means over ridge lines and things, it's going to be very limited. The other problem that you will run into is the DPM on this thing. Even as you can see here, even with food, even with a bounty gun rammer, brothers in arms crew, it's only topping out like 2600, 2673, and especially when you're going up, even the nerfed Super Conk with a similar setup still has like 3200 DPM. So it will struggle on the DPM side of things. Still, this tank feels really strong. It's got the armor, very kind of a trolley armor layout that will just bounce a lot of rounds that and trick a lot of people into thinking they can pin it when they can't. Um, and just because of that, I feel like this tank's in a really good position. The buffs all kind of hit it at the right way. So what did they do to it? Well, they increased its power to weight ratio. They increased its gun handling and the penetration on its rounds. And all these kind of together, they did a little bit to the turret. Just so you understand, there's like this little ring on the turret right here, and this little bitty ring right here, prior had like 240 millimeters of pin. It was really easy to pin. And they've buffed this significantly. This little bitty ring right here, this little black, you can kind of see it's kind of black. But still, like this area right here is pretty weak, and we'll take a look at that on Tanks GG in a minute. That still being said, I don't have a general problem with people pinning me in that location because even when you just get a little bit off, this is like 400 millimeters thick. So like there's a little area here that can be pinned, and obviously if you're like in a hold down spot and the guy's like 50 meters away, um, that becomes a big liability. But you start getting like 150 millimeters away, it's not really a problem because yeah, they might pin it, but they probably won't. They'll probably just be a little bit off one way or the other. So it works. The awkward thing of this tank though is it's a really mediocre side scraper, and the reason being is this whole area right here, just kind of you see the turret ring. This area right below it is very weak if you're side scraping. So when you're coming around corners, you kind of want to be at an angle, and I have some replay footage that I will show kind of right after this. But my general response to this is it is a strong tank, and I would pick it up and try it in matches. I'm probably averaging almost 4,000 damage a game in it right now. It's a good time to be playing it. Um, yeah, so let's take a look at the Tanks GG and the armor layout. Alright, so courtesy of Tanks GG, they give us the armor layout. This website I cannot recommend enough. Anytime you get into a match, if you're having trouble pinning, go to this website, look at the armor model of the tank, and just kind of get it, see why you're not pinning it. So this is what I'm talking about. This turret ring that they recently buffed. It's 300 millimeters, significant upgrade right here. And then obviously the barrel is sitting here, so it absorbs a lot of rounds. But this area right here, this is where I'm talking about. It's still kind of weak. It's a thin area. It's not very thick. And then right here you get 450. So yes, when you're shooting at this thing, hold down. This whole mantlet area is kind of where you want to be aiming, but it's not going to be 100% of the time you're going to hit it because, like I said, a slight to the right, that's 450 millimeters, and you don't go through. So it can do hold down. The closer you are to them, the less effective the armor is going to be because their aim's going to be better. But a little bit further away, this thing feels really strong. Now coming around corners, I'll just go to like side scraping, and this is what I was talking about when it side scrapes. This area right here, 179. You basically present a big weakness when you try to side scrape at like a normal angle. So when you're side scraping, you want to keep, almost facing them as much as possible to kind of limit their shot right here. Because, you know, they get a little bit off, all of a sudden, you know, that's 600. So there's a good chance that they hit this, or maybe even the upper plate. But you almost want to kind of back up more straight than at an angle like you probably would like on a 705A. Very different kind of side scraping. You got to be very cautious about um, over angling this tank. But when you come around corners, what gives this thing kind of a trolley layout is this lower plate. Now, straight on, 270 something, 72 millimeters thick. Um, you're pretty much going to have to fire premium rounds. There's a lot of tier 10s that are going to struggle just going through this with normal rounds. Now, with premium rounds, yeah, that'll go through. But let's say you're kind of coming on an angle a little bit. All of a sudden, you're trying to just poke this corner out. Well, yeah, good luck right there. You know, that's going to be very difficult for most tanks, even with premium rounds, to go through. And, you know, if you throw them down here, they try to shoot the bottom part. Yeah, not going through. So really, like when the ideal play style for this thing is to be kind of aggressive around a corner, kind of just pressing them, you know, almost sticking your little nose out right here to try to bait a shot into this because they'll think that they can pin it and you'll bounce it and then you just come around and shoot them. So that's kind of how you play this game. I'm gonna get on with some replay footage that I have. That an ideal situation where you're able to kind of push around a corner. Like I said, this thing, all around, even if you are in a hold down fight, it does perform pretty well. Like I said, it's there. Yeah, there's some green there, but there's not a lot. So it performs well. It's a very strong tank. But yeah, let's get on the replay footage. Okay, so we have Abby, and Abby's a good map for this tank because there's some like side scraping. There's ways to use the front armor, especially like how I'm going to be pushing. Um, you want to size up your opponents right as you get away. First thing I notice, there's got two T57s. It's got 340 heat pin. But other than that, BZ, you know, it's around, what is he, 310, something like that. And they got some tier 9s. So the only real play here on Abby is to go to the left. Honestly, there's not much of a reason, in my opinion, to ever really go the 8 line. Even if you do win it, you then have to actually push into the cap, and you have, if you look at like H2, you know, BC2 area where they can get on this ridge line and essentially just cover cap from a really strong position. I don't recommend pushing 8 line in pubs, particularly. But people do it all the time. As you can see, my team's all going over there. You got the TDs. You know, it is what it is. But I don't recommend it personally. I think most of the time you're much better off even in mediums, either playing the middle or playing the 1-2 line. If you got a little bit of turret armor, I'd definitely go to the 1-2 line. So I notice my team's a little bit light, but one of their T57s went 8 line, so I don't have to worry about that one. The tank I'm probably most kind of afraid of is the Foch 155. You know, just in case he decides to just YOLO me, that's very painful. And first thing I want to do is get very aggressive. Their BZ is pushing. I see the tier 9. I decided I'm going to take this position up here because, like I said, this thing, you can kind of play around these corners really, really well. And here I'm just going to kind of stick my nose out, bait the shot. And again, that lower plate right there, you just kind of stick it out at an angle, and a lot of times they will bounce it. But you do, like I said, slow DPM. You want to shoot, kind of have a place to kind of pull back to, reload, and then just push forward again. And he managed to pin me that time. Again, traded with him just fine. That is one thing with this gun that I really like, is it's got enough alpha that you can effectively trade with people, but it's not like a they named that shot well, but it's not like a 60 TP where you obviously can trade swing well. You got 750 alpha, but they're not willing to poke on you. So I do run into that situation on 60 TP where you're just kind of waiting to get a shot in. There's a good low roll right there. And now they're going to try to push around on me, and this is kind of where you can really use that armor. So they're trying to find shots, bounce both of them, finish off the autoloader, and now I just need to kind of just keep angling my tank, see if I can't draw them. That little, I call it the World of Tanks shuffle, where you're just kind of wiggling back and forth. A lot of times you can just get them to miss a shot. So here I am, 2100 damage, up 2 kills. The 4005 decided to shoot the tier 9. So instead of going for the BZ right here, I'm going to go for that 4005 while he is reloading. Got 3 kills, 2400 damage. And this is a pretty... I do get a top gun in this one, but around 4000 damage is pretty average for me in this tank right now. And there, so kind of coming on that corner. He's not able to pin me with a Hesh round. And, particularly trying to shoot down on this tank, it's kind of difficult. You got that big upper plate that's very thick. So, yeah, just really like the gun handling in this tank right now. The buff where they give it, with the food and the Brothers in Arms, I've got .29 accuracy, and it allows me to actually play with a turbo on this tank. And prior to the buff, I felt like you had to run a vertical stabilizer on it to really to have like the gun reliable enough to be able to use in a match. And here, see, I just kind of angle that front right there so it's not facing directly at him, and I get another bounce. And you'll get them all the time. This tank does ram extremely well. It's a heavy tank. So 4800 damage, 6 kills. Fortunately my engine's knocked out. But a typical just build for this tank, I think hardening rammer turbo is the way to go with it, especially with the gun handling buff that they gave it. The turbo, I think, is just a necessity. Now, you don't even need the V-stab like you did before. Before, the gun handling was very derpy, and if you didn't have a V-stab, it just didn't work very well. So, in conclusion, that's the general play style that you're going to want. You want to be just kind of aggressive, keep the pressure on the tanks, keep the gun firing as much as you can. The gun handling's reliable. They buffed the penetration on it, so especially in the premium rounds, you got 325 pin. That allows you to go through a lot of tanks that this thing probably struggled with before, like the face of a E100. When you have like 311, it's a little bit of an angle. You might bounce it, but you get a little bit at 325. It gives you a little bit more wiggle room on it, where it doesn't have to be like perfectly facing you, and it just makes it a lot more reliable, especially even if you get a slightly low roll on the pin. But yeah, I recommend picking this tank up. The buffs seem to all hit it at the right spot. Um, it does have some weaknesses. Like if you're hold down against a tank and he's pinning you right here, if he does it twice, just don't poke him again. Go somewhere else. Um, it's RNG's not on your side, but like I said, if you're 150, 200 meters away from them, this is actually a pretty tough shot. They're just really honestly about as more likely to hit the really thick part than the pinnable location of it. So give the tank a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how reliable the armor is. It's already was kind of known as one of the better tanks to do your bounce missions that are kind of annoying to do if you're still doing the campaigns. But yeah, this tank feels strong right now. I'd definitely give it a shot.